Now, we have a question from Muhammad here, and it might seem like a fairly specific question, but I enjoy the question itself. And very simply, Muhammad asks, do you have any tips for training during fasting periods like Ramadan? First, in every religious tradition, now, if you know my background, you know I taught religious studies and religion for maybe 3, 4, 5 decades. I taught at a university, and in fact, even invented a course or two on teaching religious studies. So I do have a good background in religious studies. And one of the things you'll find out when you study every religious tradition is that all of them have, at some level, dietary restrictions. Generally, in the Western churches, you'll find that a lot of it is, the fasting is a bit seasonal. I know, I have a lot of friends who are Greek Orthodox, and if you follow the exact Greek Orthodox dietary recommendations, there is a great saint who said so in the Greek Orthodox tradition, never look at another person's plate. I thought that was a great line. A lot of we would say, judge not, lest ye be judged. But how do you train during Ramadan? We do have a lot more information about it than we did even 10 years ago. In our recent NC2A tournament, we had a player during Ramadan play. I think he played, I want to say he played all the way into the finals. And they were very good about dealing with him with his electrolytes immediately after the fasting period was over. And of course, he played basketball games. Probably not an optimal thing if you stop eating when you can't discern a black thread from a white thread. When you can discern a black thread from a white thread, that's usually early in the morning, and generally, basketball games are played at night now, especially big games. So that's a long time to go without food. About training, first, I think this, if you can push your training off closer and closer and closer to sundown, I think that's the best way to go. I wouldn't mind you doing a training session maybe within an hour of sundown. So after you shower, you clean up, you get pretty, the cannon goes off like it did for me in Cairo. And then it seemed to me that 26 million people all sat down at the same in the same space. On a side note, Mohammed, so that what I would say is train as close as you can to sundown. I would probably during the month of Ramadan, if you could, have your normal movement, your walking, your work, your childcare, whatever it is, throughout the day, whatever you have to do. And then if you can, I would do something as simple as, and I would be a fan of something more like easy strength. So the volume in both reps and sets, the load, and even the density, the time that you're going to do the workouts is going to be a little bit more open. If you have access to machines, you probably could do something like 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12 on anywhere from 6 to 9 to 12 machines and just get that good old fashioned pump in, and that would be okay. It is interesting, and I'll just stop here very quickly after this, but it is interesting when people say intermittent fasting doesn't work, yet they've done studies of blood profiles after Ramadan, and everyone's healthier after the lunar month of fasting. So there is great advantages to fasting. And one of the things for those of you who are in any religious tradition, if you study what your religious tradition talks about dietary practices, very often they make a lot of sense for the time and place in which they were written. I covered this a lot in my in the seat classes, and my students found it fascinating because there's a real logic to dietary interventions by religions. Lent and Carnival, which means the feast of eating meat, all that makes more sense when you put it in the time and place and location of Christianity at that time. When you look at some of the laws of Leviticus, the dietary laws, it makes a lot more sense when you look at the time and place of when that book was written. So, well, thank you, Muhammad. It's a good question. Basically, I'm a huge believer in intermittent fasting. I'll read an article or two or listen to somebody online who tells me it's the wrong idea, but then I get back to what I do, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, maybe it's the wrong idea for that person, but it's the right idea for me. So thank you, Mohammed. Very interesting question, and I appreciate it.